This program has got a curious name. It's called Banana Wars, and it went on the air in 1993. Yes, we have no bananas today. Sorry about the singing. But it's an old song that really meant something to kids of my generation because we didn't have any bananas. During the war, it wasn't considered worth the life of our seamen to import a luxury like bananas, so there weren't any. And it seems that the same situation could be about to prevail today, according to some of the headlines I've been reading. Banana-geddon, shouts one of them. Millions face hunger as fungus hits crop, we hear. Are bananas about to become extinct, we're asked. A horrifying disease is about to destroy the £5 billion worldwide banana crop, we're also warned. Now, this is a new crisis for banana, this disease, but it's certainly not the first. For decades, the banana has been the cause of economic, social and environmental conflict. The last big bust-up came with the introduction of the common market. Traditionally, France and Great Britain had given preferential treatment to banana imports from its former colonies in the Caribbean. But Germany, in the common market, didn't like that, nor did the United States. Hence, the banana wars that I reported on in 1993.
I don't like your peaches, 'cause they are full of stones, but I like bananas because they have no bones. I don't like tomatoes, and I don't like ice cream cones, but I like bananas because they have no bones.
Apart from its faintly phallic shape, what is it that's funny about a banana? When we speak of banana republics, banana splits, banana boats, or of going bananas, we somehow invite a smile, and I'm not sure why. But I do know that the humour is only skin deep, and that there's nothing at all jokey about the banana business. Its history is a tale of greed, corruption, exploitation, and violence. And still today, the banana trade is in turmoil.
St. Lucia in the Windward Islands, a typical Caribbean paradise of the travel brochures. But there's trouble here in paradise. The lifeblood of these islands is not tourism, but bananas. Recently, St. Lucia's been fighting for its economic life in a bruising banana trade war. Ever since they were part of the British Empire, several Caribbean territories, including the Windward Islands, Jamaica and Belize, have been guaranteed a market for their bananas in the UK. And this brought them a measure of security and prosperity.
But suddenly, looming ahead of them, was the advent of the single European market, with the prospect of an end to their preferential trade agreements, and the hopeless task of trying to sell their bananas in a free market. I say hopeless because waiting in the wings are the three mighty American multinationals, the men from Del Monte, Chiquita and Dole.
Already, these big multinationals have 2/3 of the world trade in bananas, including half that of the European community, and they want the rest. In a free market, their cheap so-called dollar bananas, grown in the banana republics of Latin America, could soon have pushed out the smaller Caribbean and African producers like the Windward Islands.
With so much at stake, the lobbying and the infighting have been intense. Britain and France have been leading the battle to retain some special arrangements with their traditional Caribbean suppliers, while Germany is at the forefront of the free marketeers. And while the banana drama has been unfolding over there, people have been getting increasingly apprehensive over here.
We would collapse because really what's happened, you have something in the Windward Islands, about 20,000 farmers producing about less than 400,000 tons of bananas, and you put them against the multinationals dealing with thousands and thousands of acres, producing something like 2 million tons of bananas. The playing field is not level.
Banana dependency in the Caribbean began in the aftermath of World War II.
The first cargo of bananas that has arrived at this port since the war. We hope it's the prelude of many more to come.
And I don't like your peaches, 'cause they are full of stones, but I like bananas because they have no bones.
During the years of food rationing, Britain had been starved of bananas, and to acquire reliable supplies of the fruit without spending scarce dollars became a high political priority.
No matter where I go, with Flo or May or
The answer was to encourage the growing of bananas in Britain's Caribbean colonies, which were part of the Sterling area. Very soon, bananas were flooding in from Jamaica and the Windward Islands. It was good for Britain and a godsend for the islands, which were suffering from a decline in the sugarcane industry. For those who broke into the banana business, it was very good too. In the Windward Islands, the entire banana production fell into the hands of a family concern run by the brothers Van Geest. With a guaranteed market for their fruit in Britain and a guaranteed price, it's been a very cosy arrangement for Geest. But one that's still threatened by the arrival of the single European market. To find out where Britain's bananas are coming from and why we're paying more for them than some of our European neighbours, I travelled into the St. Lucia that tourists don't see. With me, a banana expert from the Growers Association. The first thing I learned was that bananas need sun and rain and tender loving care. They're sensitive to cold and to drought. They're attacked by a myriad of pests, and their cultivation is highly labour intensive.
Unlike dollar bananas that are produced on large plantations employing thousands of relatively poorly paid workers, the distinctive feature of the banana industry in the Windward Islands are the large numbers of small family-run farms. There are 27,000 of them operating on only just over 40,000 acres, which means that the average size is less than 5 acres, and most of it, is on these very steep slopes going right up to the mountain tops. This one is owned by Pierre George, who's grown bananas for the past 40 years.
Well,
You've disappeared.
yeah.
Despite cutting down the tree to pick the fruit, a sucker from this same plant will produce another large stem of bananas within a few months. That's the marvel of the banana.
Why'd you chuck those away?
By planting a
Not good.
succession of
No
trees
good,
that
no.
mature at different times,
too
Pierre can
sharp.
harvest fruit every
Too small.
week throughout
Yes,
the year.
I see.
In this respect,
All
it's
the
the
time you're
perfect
cutting
cash
bananas, your
crop,
hand must be very clean, without the
but only if the fruit is good enough.
Without
Growers
the-
must meet
the milk.
rigorous quality
The juice falling
standards,
up there.
and the wastage seems appalling.
I reckon you must have rejected about a quarter of the bananas.
Well, yes, but sometimes you have to leave a whole bunch. You go right up there now, I go up there and I see whole bunches hung there, it's not good.
And you reject the whole lot.
Yes, the quarters of there have to leave it. Have a lot of black things in it.
Are we too fussy, do you think?
In London?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, but
We seem
You
to
do see?
make life very difficult for you.
not for me alone.
The journey from the hillside in St. Lucia to your breakfast table will take about 3 weeks, if the bananas get there.
Now, what
As
would
the fruit
determine the
faces
difference
further
between
scrutiny,
why is it
up
not
to
first rate?
40% of the crop can be rejected as unsuitable for export.
It's a very interesting question.
And this is more than a bath. It's a treatment that stops the bananas going rotten. Since Pierre not only grows the bananas, but packs them and delivers them to the port, the quality is his responsibility.
Look, I just saw one of the ladies throw out what looked to me like a perfectly good bunch of bananas. I mean, why did she throw that out?
It's because of this bruise. Actually, you know, these were bruised, you know, from the top fingers, you know.
This little mark here?
Yeah, this little mark there. So it's best to throw it instead of, you know, losing a whole carton. It's
All right.
best to
If it's in the carton, they reject the whole carton.
Reject the whole...
the whole carton will be rejected. The whole carton will be
If you
rejected.
put it in the
please.
box and they open the box, they see that. They put it down.
It's true. At the packing station where the smaller growers take their fruit, I saw whole boxes summarily rejected. Nevertheless, everyone, even the smallest grower, is desperately anxious to stay in the banana business. No other crop will bring in a regular income week in, week out. But the huge multinational producers in Latin America regard this as a Mickey Mouse operation. These boxes of bananas each cost twice as much to produce as theirs, and they insist that cultivation here is hopelessly uncompetitive and inefficient.
Well, efficiency is really a relative term. What are we efficient with or inefficient with? Look at the resources we have. Small farmers with small plots of land, with unmountainous territory, and yet producing bananas of the quality. What the British housewife is getting really is a better quality fruit. And that is what we are striving to do, to maintain the quality. It's a better quality, it's a finer tasting fruit. And that's what we're offering to them.
From the Prime Minister down, who's himself a banana grower, everyone in St. Lucia seems to have an interest in bananas. And everyone, even the taxi drivers, are worried that banana wars in Europe could hit them where it hurts most. Even though tourism is their bread and butter, it's bananas that supply the jam.
Even taxi drivers and minibus owners somewhat derive the capitals from the banana plantation. In other words, they start off by either planting or the parents planting, and this is where the first income will be coming from, to get your deposits or whatever from the banks. It will have to be from the bananas. Most of the beautiful homes that we see on the outskirts of the town, farmers' homes, and they actually get these homes not too long ago when the banana industry was really at its boom.
The home of Pierre George shows the modest prosperity that bananas have brought to what was a very poor country.
And Rose, how are you?
On the proceeds of a few acres of bananas, Pierre put a large family through school and university. In one generation, lives and expectations have been transformed. Two of Pierre's sons are government ministers.
So you've got Postmaster General and you've got the Minister of Education.
Yes.
I think we'd better speak to the Minister of Education for when you were a child, I mean, did you work out there on the farm with everybody else?
Sure, I'm the first of the family, and I worked along with my dad all the time. We had to, on days, especially harvesting days, in some cases we were taken out of school to assist.
From government ministers to calypso kings, they all sing the praises of the banana.
Most of us.
This banana grower is best known by his calypso name. He is the Mighty Heater. But at present he has something more serious than calypso on his mind.
What would happen, do you think, if you lost your guaranteed market in the UK?
Well, a lot of things could happen to us here, because only one thing we have in here is banana. We have cocoa, we're making some oil before, but nowadays they're making nothing here.
So you think it'd be pretty bad if you lose that?
Yes, yes. It's pretty bad, because only one thing we have to do here.
Have you tried to do something different? Have you tried to grow different crops?
Well, It will take time. It will take time. If we grow in different crops now, it will take time for it to bear.
What are the possibilities?
Well, we don't know. We don't know what to do now because the money going low.
Does the development of tourism offer an alternative? Could that ever take the place of bananas?
No, it cannot. It cannot take the place of agriculture. Yeah, I couldn't see the farmers on the hills wanting to go and serve daiquiri in hotels. The tourism has its place, and tourism will grow. It will not take the place of agriculture. Even with diversification, if we go into any of the things, we have to diversify around bananas, not away from bananas.
Not if the president of Honduras can help it. He's leading the campaign to end any protection for bananas in the European community.
I am a firm believer of free market. But then again, I believe that we should take care of the Caribbean countries, or ACP, which are weaker. Even if in our own weakness, they're weaker than us.
What do you say to those who are suggesting that instead of making these special arrangements for you in the European market, that you should be given aid? What do you say to that?
I think that's really beneath our dignity. What we ask for is to earn our living. We don't want to be reduced like what happens in the American cities of being given food stamps rather than a job. We have a job here, we want to maintain that job and to earn our living. That's what we ask for.
Just how unsuitable the windwards are for growing bananas, indeed for growing anything in any quantity, is all too clear. Much of this should have been left to the native forest that once covered it. And the glib talk of diversification overlooks the fact that whatever is grown here, grapefruit for example, can be grown elsewhere far more cheaply and efficiently. It doesn't even pay Pierre George to pick his grapefruit for the local market. And it's impossible to overstate the difference in scale between the banana business in the windwards and in Latin America. It's like comparing this mode of transport with a mighty juggernaut. In Latin America, they can grow as many bananas in one plantation as 20,000 growers can produce in the islands. They also claim to produce better bananas here. And if by better one means bigger and shinier, they probably do. These dollar bananas already account for about 60% of the EC's annual consumption. Under the new rules, they'll be limited by quota to 2 million tons, which was the quantity sold to Europe in 1990. Anything over 2 million tons will attract a whacking 170% tax. This has upset the Latin Americans and the multinationals and the Germans. The Germans are Europe's biggest banana consumers, and they say they'll have to pay much more for their fruit, just to protect little Caribbean whole farmers who could never ever compete with operations like this and shouldn't even try.
Bananas is a product that requires, in my criteria, high technology, and therefore very high investment, and productivity that arises from that requires in itself conditions that are different than what they have there. So it's really, their position is understandable and very complicated. Very complicated. I cannot foresee that they could be competitive with the companies here.
The companies have established themselves throughout Central America, in Guatemala, Panama, Costa Rica, and Honduras. They've been here a long time. By the turn of the last century, they were clearing the land and importing the labor. It was the introduction of refrigeration that permitted the rapid expansion of the banana trade. Soon the companies had turnovers larger than the countries in which they operated. Their political interference became notorious. they'd built the railways, the ports and the towns, they felt as if they owned everything, and often behaved as if they did. Nowhere was their conduct more outrageous than in Honduras, the archetypal banana republic.
100 years ago, it became part of the mighty Central American banana empire established by the Boston-based United Fruit Company, that now trades under the name of Chiquita. The United Fruit Company, hereafter called the Company, did a deal with the Honduran government. In return for vast tracts of land, the company undertook to build a railway from the capital, Tegucigalpa, to the coast. What the company actually did was to construct a rail link from its banana plantations to the coast, but never extended it to the capital, and probably never intended to. That was typical of the ruthless and cynical attitude that's chillingly set out in a letter of instruction from the company bosses in Boston to their lawyers here in Honduras. A few quotations will give a flavour of the whole. 20th of July 1920, Dear Luis, the company must take possession of as much land and acquire as much wealth as we have the power to absorb. We must draw up such irreversible contracts that nobody can compete with us. We must secure exemptions from tariffs, customs duties, and all public taxes. The privileged class here must bend itself to our will. We do need their country and their natural resources of their coasts and ports. And little by little, we must acquire them. And acquire them, they certainly did.
Within 10 years, United had acquired 3.5 million acres, an area the size of Northern Ireland. Not all of it was put down to bananas. On some of it, they built towns. In a place like La Lima, with no local authority, even the schools were built and run by the company. And although land holdings are now much reduced, there's still plenty of evidence of Chiquita power. If you wanted a meal or a drink, you'd be looked after in the company hotel and offered a beer that's still brewed by the company's rival, Standard Fruit, another of the banana multinationals. It's little wonder that these companies behaved as if they owned the place. They did. Even the hospitals, superior to anything the government offered. It was a state within a state, creating management attitudes that have been slow to change.
This is a new one, is it?
Competition is still not at all welcome. 3 years ago, Tim Stickney was sent to Honduras by Fifes, the Anglo-Irish banana importer, to secure supplies of bananas from independent producers. By offering higher prices than Chiquita had paid, Fifes contracted for bananas to be shipped to Europe. But Chiquita claimed that by buying from independents, Fifes was stealing their bananas and set out to stop them.
We had, a good 20,000 boxes on board, when one evening some armed persons came on board and demanded that the ship be unloaded again. In fact, the ship was actually pirated.
And the harassment continued. Chiquita managed to have Stickney put in jail. And as he sat in this restaurant, used as a temporary office, he was constantly watched from parked vehicles. For days on end, he was followed, and repeated attempts were made to stop Fife's banana shipments. One train was derailed. The line had been sabotaged, but the culprits were never found. Fifes and their growers became increasingly agitated. To make sure the bananas reached the port, the growers organized their workers into a defense force to escort the trains.
And so all these people got together themselves and they came down here to the port. And they came down, with their machetes, and it got fairly dangerous seeing a whole crowd of fairly wild campesinos. And so eventually, the authorities let the fruit through.
Chiquita has never pretended that their conduct was anything but intimidation, or that it was not officially sanctioned.
Whatever happened while these arguments and these legal fights were going on were the actions of the managers, of management. You had to do a job, and you did your job. That's what I recall having happened. Yeah.
I mean, that attempts to stop ships being loaded and that kind of thing, I mean, this was authorized?
the attempts to stop ships being loaded with our bananas is a decision of the manager. Somebody was taking our bananas away, and we had to stop it legally.
Eventually, Tim Stickney and Fifes and their growers were rescued by a peace agreement, hammered out at a high-level meeting with both the British and the American ambassadors present. Fifes are now shipping their bananas without hindrance. But Chiquita had shown that the old instincts of the banana barons die hard. Banana communities in Central America are quite unlike their Caribbean counterparts. The workers are generally not as well off. These men and women take home a weekly wage, and none of them owns land. Indeed, many will not even own the houses they live in, although they may purchase their homes from the company, making easy payments throughout a lifetime of employment. In Honduras, even the terrapins are fed bananas. And Amilcar Guardado, who's feeding them, has worked for Chiquita for more than 30 years. His two sons were born in the company hospital and educated in the company school. He wishes that they too could work for the company. Amilcar and wife Sylvia have half paid for their home, and they know that by Honduran standards they're considered well off. Anything that threatened the future of the company would be bad news for them.
Los años que tengo de trabajar, de allí pues hemos a través del mismo salario que tenemos de trabajar me ha dado, como le vuelvo a repetir, educarlos, pagar ciertas cosas que uno mal o bien necesita en su hogar, en su casa. De allí directamente pues es el sacrificio de la misma persona, ¿no? Claro que sí, estaríamos contentos de que se trabajaran, digamos, los hijos de los trabajadores en la empresa. Eso es lo que se buscó ahorita con este otro nuevo sistema que hubo con la empresa, de que se dejen los hijos de los trabajadores trabajando, pero cuesta bastante, cuesta.
Sylvia, are the people you work with, are they also worried about the future and the possibility of losing jobs?
Siempre las que van empezando, que tienen 1, 2, 3 años, 4, 5, eso sí. Pueda que, pues, al haber necesidad de que la empresa tenga rebaja de personal, dejaría a las más viejas.
Banana workers in Honduras employed by the big companies are a privileged minority, outnumbered by landless campesinos like these. And unlike the Windward Islands, there are few small banana farms to spread the wealth around. Even when bananas are booming, most of the profits leave the country. And with no social security, banana taxes don't benefit poor people like these. Nonetheless, Latin American governments argue that their chance of tackling poverty is jeopardized by the proposed EC banana quotas. It's an emotive point, forcibly put.
We're not only working in very adverse conditions to generate economic growth and welfare, but parallel to that, we have to fight political decisions that have to do with free trade. This is not a simple decision. It's not an economic decision. It's a political decision. And when you get politics involved in economics, in the end, that political decision will have negative effects on all involved, not only on us. If we don't succeed, and I hope we do, this will be an incredibly blow to Latin America. We will really be hurt economically.
Just 200 or 300 miles distant from Honduras is Costa Rica. Now, Costa Rica was once the biggest banana exporter in the world, and even now it's number 2. But by no stretch of the imagination could it be called a banana republic.
Costa Rica has somehow managed to avoid the conflict and political turmoil that has shaken her sister republics. With well-established democratic institutions and without a standing army, Costa Rica has been a land of peace and tranquility, prosperous and sophisticated. And in recent years, it's become a mecca for so-called eco-tourists, down here from North America to enjoy the beaches and the extensive national parks. But a conservationist reputation has been dented by a recent and rapid expansion in banana production that's doubled the acreage. Now there's a world glut of bananas and prices have plummeted. That may explain the frantic hostility to EC quotas. According to the Bishop of Limón, in whose diocese most bananas grow, the banana rush has been chaotic.
Bueno, el problema más que todo obedece que cuando no hay un plan determinado para la expansión para el cultivo del banano, esto hace que todo el mundo se comience a sembrar banano sin tener las precauciones, los cuidados, la atención necesaria para saber si este cultivo incontrolado del banano a la postre vaya a traer entonces consecuencias como lo estamos viendo en estos momentos.
Supporting the bishop's view is just about every conservation group in Costa Rica. Tom Devney is a forester who's worried about what the new banana plantations may be doing to the forests in the national parks. And he says that from the air he can show me why. He's instructing the pilot to fly first over the Tortuguero National Park and then over the adjacent banana plantations. The park protects a network of unique inland waterways. According to conservation laws, there should be no banana plantation within 20 kilometers of the park boundaries. But as Tom pointed out, they're encroaching ever nearer.
Here we are into some fairly recently established banana plantations. You can see the system of canals in a rectangular or trellis pattern. And here's one of the rivers that cut through there. Those plantations come just about to the river. Here they've left a small fringe of a few trees, but not much. The forestry law states that they have to leave a fringe of vegetation on either side. The banana companies in turn have said, well, this interferes with our spraying operations and the drainage operations, and in most cases they have been supported by the Ministry of Agriculture. Here's some canals that they're making. You can see some of the old timber on the ground from the old forests. Usually they'll just burn it or try to bury it.
Here's some young bananas, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. This has been recently planted. Again, it's the contrast with the forest is like night and day. You have the feeling that this is a more sterile land.
Not just sterile, but potentially dangerous. Pesticides are constantly sprayed onto the bananas. The chemicals seep into the drainage system and thence into the rivers that feed the national park. No one knows what the consequences may be, and the banana companies seem not to care. The Estrella River demonstrates their indifference. It flows through a valley that's totally given over to banana production, one of the biggest and most productive plantations in the country. At the mouth of the river, these waters flow into the Cahuita National Park, a marine reserve that's supposed to protect Costa Rica's only coral reef. For years now, marine biologists and conservationists have been complaining that sediment from the banana plantations carried down the Estrella River and deposited out to sea has been destroying the coral. To check on the present state of the coral, we asked a marine biologist to dive onto the reef to see if he thought it had changed and what the reasons for the change might be. Benson Robinson is from a local fishing family, and he's known these waters since childhood. To give you something to judge it by, this is a healthy Caribbean reef. How Benson remembers that Cahuita once looked.
Everything looks like a garden of life. You could see different colors.
blue-green, brown, orange. It was marvelous. And then you start to swim, and then you find yourself in cardamons of fishes going around, and it was a great experience. You feel yourself like directly in touch with nature.
Not any longer. This is how the reef looks today. Gone are the colourful shoals of fish and most of the other marine life that makes its home on healthy coral.
What about the state of the coral itself?
To be honest with you, it's a disaster. You see blanching, the blanching effect, you see white spots on the coral, you see coral that is broken, and some coral that is completely dead, and you see algae is growing on top of them.
Algae growing on them?
Yeah, and the color is darker. You don't see that life color that you could see 10 years ago.
Now, when you see these symptoms, when you see the bleaching and when you see the algae and all this, what does this tell you is happening to the coral?
That the coral is in a process of dying.
Nestling among the trees that fringe Cavite's shores are numerous hotels. They're part of Costa Rica's other major industry, tourism, particularly ecotourism. But it seems that the interests of this industry are definitely in conflict with the other big foreign exchange earner, bananas. Visitors come to Costa Rica to enjoy its natural beauty and its wildlife, which appear to be threatened by the activities of the banana growers. That is certainly the view of one man who built his hotel near this beach because he'd been captivated by the beauty of the reef. John Harvey has now ceased diving, and he's beginning to wonder if he put his hotel in the right place after all.
Your business was ecotourism to see the reef.
This is it, okay? Now, look, any kind of brochure that I made, the reef will be the last thing that I put on the bottom of the thing. Now I'm going to the river in the mountain. I'm going to see the Indian. I'm going to see the reserve Itoy Serere that is next to here, that is a reserve biological. I cannot even think of bringing serious people to see nice things, to bring them to see this coral, because I will be fooling them, because the coral for me is kind of, I don't have no scientific data of that, but I think it's over.
John has banned banana bosses from his hotel, not just because of the coral, but because they refuse to consider remedies.
They're dinosaurs in their way of thinking. You understand? Because they're just coming from another age. For you, if you have an environmental way of thinking where you can see that you can make money, I do make good money, but I mean, I can make it a nice way. And if you try to say that to them, they said no. The only way to make money is no, we don't care about nothing.
In recent years, the banana barons have been trying to polish up a rather tarnished image, but every so often the mask slips. When it first became known that sediment from the Estrella River was damaging the corals in the Cavite National Park, the president of Costa Rica himself wrote to the manager of the Standard Fruit Company operating here in the Estrella Valley, asking him to clean up his act. He may have been surprised at the response. The manager paid a visit to the director of the national park. "Do you want to know what I think about this?" he asked, brandishing the president's letter, and ripped it in half. He added that the banana industry is far more important than a little park like Cavite. Old attitudes die hard.
And agricultural interests, it seems, will always prevail over environmental ones. Costa Rica has superb national parks. It also has the fastest rate of deforestation in Latin America and justifies it on economic grounds.
Este país no tiene minas, no tiene oro, no tiene hierro, no tiene petróleo, lo único que tiene es suelos. Si no usamos nuestros suelos para producir no solo bananos y café, sino muchos otros productos que exportamos ahora, como melones, como macadamias, como muchísimos flores ornamentales, piñas. Si no hacemos esto, nuestro pueblo no tendría de qué vivir ni de qué importar. La gente que defiende mucho el El ambiente no piensa mucho en que hay que comer, en que hay que producir riqueza. A ellos les gusta mucho tener carro y tener una televisión y tener la posibilidad de vivir muy bien, pero no saben de dónde viene esta comodidad. Y esto viene de la producción, de nuestras tierras, de nuestra gente que está en los campos produciendo, porque no hay otra forma. Este país no tiene otra riqueza natural que no sean sus suelos.
Throughout Central America, crop sprayers crisscross the skies, dumping their loads of pesticide. Once a week at least, bananas are sprayed with one poison or another. It's the most expensive single input the industry has to face. But is it really necessary? On one farm I visited, they're growing a large patch of bananas without using chemicals. Only organic methods of control are used. And according to the man who devised the experiment, the bananas are indistinguishable from fruit grown in the conventional manner.
Short of no chemicals, you can't tell the difference between our fruit and theirs. When it comes to the packing shed, our fruit goes straight through the same quality and grading lines, and we're getting just the same, if not better, yields in terms of pack out per raceme or per bunch of bananas. And there is no difference, other than quality in terms of chemicals or no chemicals, and taste. We think actually you can taste the difference in a banana.
Do you think that this is a regime that could be used on a mass scale for all banana growing?
I think it would take a big change, a big mentality change, no doubt about it. It could be used on a large scale. I mean, what we're demonstrating here and what this grower has seen is that if it works on 3 hectares, it's got to work on 400 hectares. And the fact of the matter is, when you get done doing the numbers, this is cheaper. That goes a long way with a farmer.
What would be the chance, the hope, do you think, of convincing a huge operation like Chiquito or Dole or somebody like that?
I think it's possible. I think it would take lots of years of research. Lots of the people that are in the R&D department don't really believe anything until they've seen it happen and replicated 10 or 12 times over time. However, for a farmer who's facing either a catastrophe in terms of low production and high costs, we think it offers a farmer an immediate alternative. And as a matter of fact, 3 farms down from here, we're starting on 75 hectares only in the next couple of weeks to change that over.
If Crady's chemical-free system ever did catch on, the benefit for Latin American wildlife would be immense. And oddly enough, wildlife could also benefit from the European community's complex banana strategy. Months before the quotas come into force, banana expansion has come to a full stop. And like the sloth, may go into reverse, giving the forests a chance. Elsewhere in banana circles, there's widespread dissatisfaction with the European community. This fruit may well be headed in the direction of German supermarkets. Germans are Europe's biggest banana consumers, and they're angry that under the new quota arrangements, they'll be paying more for their favorite fruit. In exasperation at their European partners, the German government is even going to the European court to appeal against the new import rule. Banana republics are also unhappy. They're pinning their hopes on GATT, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, claiming that if free trade does not prevail, they stand to lose thousands of jobs, banana tax revenues, and foreign exchange. It's an argument that the little Windward Islands totally reject.
We're talking about a number of countries arrayed against a number of countries in Central and the other parts of Latin America. Countries with vast resources, vast population, against 4 tiny islands in the Windward Islands, with a total population of less than 500,000, producing something like under 400,000 tons, threatening an international agreement as important as the GATT. And really, this is taking what? A sledgehammer to kill a fly.
In spite of retaining a measure of protection, the islands in the sun are still worried. Worried that the Latin American lobby may yet win support in Brussels for its free trade stance. That it may persuade the European community that it cannot continue indefinitely to protect the uncompetitive.
Problem is that they cannot be economically successful unless they're protected. My question was, with Mr. Delors, when we met with him in Brussels, can you protect them all your life?
Once again, in devising a system that aggravates many of those that must try to work it, the European community has ensured that the banana wars will smoulder on.